Hello and welcome back to More Moss to the People. I am Asa Nilsson and I am your host. Today is going to be my last episode until August of my podcast. I have decided to take the month of July off. I'm taking a radical sabbatical and I'm going to be connecting with myself again, going out to the moss a little bit more because I've not been out as much as I would have liked to have been. Isn't that funny? I have a podcast about being in the moss and then I'm not going out into the moss. So it's time for me to reconnect with that. So just wanted to let you know this beautiful episode is going to be our last one until August. So welcome today to my gorgeous guest, Stevie Calista of Farmhouse Moon in Asheville, North Carolina. Welcome today. Hi, Stevie. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm so good. I just love you. I love seeing you. I love looking
Oh,
at you because you calm me. I have no idea why, but when I see you, I think you have such a lovely energy. And just like I was telling somebody, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have this guest on, and she's so nice. I'm like, I don't even know you, but I mean, I know you on social media, and I think that based on the interactions that I have had with you, because I'm very good at picking up energetically how other people are. And I have really felt very aligned with you since the first time I got to see you.
mm,
So we'll talk more about that in a minute, but please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are in this world.
thank you for those kind words.
Thank you for being here.
um, so my name is Stevie Calista, and I call myself a soul blueprint alchemist, which means that I just help people like come back to their soul self and like figure out their blueprint here and why they're here and what their mission is and just like how to love themselves deeper. I am also a silversmith and a mama and gardener, and I spin many plates.
Uh-huh. I'd say so. Um, so maybe you can, we're going to talk about, because I always end up talking about what people, how you manifest that in the world, how that's a beautiful title to have for oneself. And it makes perfect sense when people will understand how you actually work in the world. Um, all right. So you live in Asheville, North Carolina, which is the mountains of North Carolina, gorgeous up there. And I think it's funny that I lived 2 hours away from where you are now. And then I moved back to Sweden. And now I meet you in Sweden when I could have met you when I lived in Huntersville, North Carolina. But it wasn't meant to be that way, was it?
Right, totally.
Not supposed to be that way. But the first time I saw you was in a private group that I was a part of with Sherry Salata called the Support System. And you had come in and you were doing like back to back, like 5-second intervals of birth chart readings for people. I was like, oh my gosh, this poor girl that she has to do this fast. Oh my God, I
You're
felt
the
bad
only
for
one
her.
that said that to me, that was like, I don't know. And I'm like, thank you for seeing me. That was really hard.
Oh my gosh, yes. I was like, I was like sweating for you. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, no, that would have taken me so much longer just to figure out the birth numbers. Okay, let's think about this, not having to type it in. But
Yeah.
you handled it valiantly, I can tell you.
Thank
And
you.
I thought that you were like, oh, wait, she does birth charts. That's interesting because I've just had my birth chart read by my tarot teacher. And I'm like, and I didn't know, like, is there more to my birth chart? I mean, I had no idea. It was like so new for me. So I hired you. I asked you to please, could you read my birth chart for me? And I, that was an hour of my life that it felt almost like a bit like like in a trajectory. I pushed myself forward
Oh,
by allowing myself, because, to ask somebody for help, I'd have a very hard time asking somebody for help. And I loved your energy right away, and you gave me this mirror into my own self that I hadn't experienced before, and it gave me so many answers to so many like quirky things about me that I thought, there's something wrong with me. What is wrong with me? I often have said that in my life, and you helped me to see that my birth chart is exactly showing this picture of exactly who I am and who I was meant to be. And through you being a soul blueprint alchemist, that's how you do that kind of work. I mean, tell us more about that, because it's so fascinating to me, the skill set that you have to be able to see into these birth charts and show somebody themselves.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, your words, first of all, like they just fill my entire being up. I'm
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna take them with
Good.
me. Thank you. I'm
Good.
really,
Please
really
do.
glad that you had that kind of experience.
Yes.
Yeah, it's sometimes I think to myself, like, how the hell do we have this? It's like a
Mm.
how do we have this map? It's like a shortcut into like really understanding ourselves. Almost like, why do we even have this, you know?
Yeah.
And I
And why
know
doesn't
like,
everybody see it? Like, why doesn't
yes,
everybody have access to it? Well, they do.
they do.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And just how like you said, you can really fast forward and just accept things really quickly. Like,
Mm,
and this isn't, not for everybody, but a lot of people can take in information and then it just becomes like all the way deep and in your body, and then you're like, oh yeah, I accept that. Someone else told me I'm like this. I've beat myself up over that because society or my parents or whoever have told me that I shouldn't be like that.
right. Yep.
Right. And then
Mm,
you get this piece of information like, no, this is divine. This is like sacred information. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I can accept that about myself. It's so cool that we can
mm,
take information and have this map and be able to really love ourselves deeper and just accept who we are and then embrace it even.
mm.
Like, oh, this can be a gift, or this challenge that I thought I've always had actually is like my key, you know?
Yes. Oh, I
And the
love
birth
that. The
chart,
key.
yeah, the birth chart really tells you, how your brain works, what's the best way for you to communicate, what your emotional needs are, your challenges, where you want to feel most free.
Mm,
Like where your soul work is, where your mission is. It's so fascinating
mm,
how much depth it has. And it's still like I'm learning every day still. I'm always tracking my own life and reading and studying. And it's like I learn so much through my clients too, like
yeah.
just because they tell me about how the sun in this place showed up for them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so fascinating. And I'm going to lock that away and collect this data and then maybe share it with somebody else. So
Yeah.
it's so cool. It's like the
Well,
coolest tool I've ever been a
well,
part
and
of.
and it is a tool, and
Yeah.
I like what you said about it being a key. And the key is that we hold the key to getting the answers. And
Yes.
we these birth charts, the information that is available to us, like I said, is available to every single human being. And I do believe that when and if people are ready, then a window of opportunity will open up for them, and
Yeah.
they will hear a message, a conversation that they might be like just like zooming through something and hear this and like, wait, what are they talking about? I can find out what my soul's purpose is this lifetime just based on the time and the date and the location of my birth. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And it's really nice to have people who actually know how to read the charts, do the work. I mean, and you can look at it yourself, but it's really nice to have somebody who knows what they're doing, to
Yeah.
help break that down for you. And you were so gentle and so kind. And when we went through this process together, and I loved it, and you took so much time with me. And you have I watch you all the time on Instagram, and I listen. You talk about cycles, like the moon cycles. I mean, there's so much that I can't understand any of it. I'm like, I just try to take it in. I'm like listening because I'm thinking it's going in there. And then maybe I'll understand more of it little by little by little. But how did you how did this path start for you? Because you live a different kind of life. And that's why I also like you, but I think that people who are coming to More Moss, the idea of this movement is to have people on that dare to be themselves in a world where sameness is more encouraged than not. And
Yeah.
you homeschool your girl, you are married to the love of your life, you're working with astrology and all sorts of beautiful things. You work with silver. You got dogs, you got cats, you got chickens, you got you're like you're this little magician. You you do all these cool things. Now, how did that start? Where did that, because that wasn't like, it didn't come from your parents. This is something that came after a point in your life. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for those words too. You're such a beautiful reflector.
Oh, good. Thanks. That's nice.
um,
Thanks.
um, you know, I have always been, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are similar. It's kind of hard for me to take to not have like to have someone else be the authority over me.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, I was always the kid that like did everything I could to please and do,
Mm-hmm.
be seen for good grades and achieve and do better and just all out of just wanting to be loved, essentially,
Yeah.
Um, but I never really liked being told what to do. I
Mm-hmm.
just did it because that's what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
And as I grew older and like worked for other people, I ended up really bumping heads with my bosses. And they actually eventually liked me for it because I challenged them. It was some
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
um,
Some.
yeah, some of them rewarded me with like more and more pay and didn't want to lose me. It was really sweet. But I also hated the fact that like I couldn't control and, maneuver like the business itself. Like I wasn't for me.
Mm.
And I remember having this like deep in my bones, like I just want to work for myself. Like I know I'll feel so free. And that for me has been such a goal, is just freedom, like what
Mm-hmm.
does that look like for you? And it's different for everybody.
Right. Right.
And for me, it was like having my own company. And for some people, that's horrifying. Like they don't want the responsibility of carrying that,
Sure.
and if freedom for them is like working for somebody else, which I
Yeah.
totally understand.
Yeah.
But I started to make jewelry. I started to work nights and weekends. I did everything I could just to like start to create my own business. And then finally I was able to take a leap. And I don't even know how I did that because I couldn't afford to do that.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
like, when your
Yeah.
soul's like, just jump. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Just trust.
Uh-huh.
And then I did jewelry for a while and I went to school for digital media. So I did some, like backup work of graphic design and design on the computer and stuff like that. And
Okay. That's
then
cool.
I moved to Michigan from Chicago, and I just out of nowhere felt this like crazy need to study astrology. And I don't know if anyone knows Deborah Silverman. Do you know
I
Deborah Silverman?
love her.
Okay.
I love that lady. She's
She's
hysterical.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I found her videos a while back. Have you ever seen the ones of her dressing as each of the signs on YouTube?
Is
Everyone
dressing
go.
as each? No.
She like dresses as an Aries and then she acts like an Aries. And they are so funny. And they're
We're
pretty
gonna
old.
we're gonna have to put
You
that in
have
the
to go
show
watch.
notes.
Yes, they're really
Okay.
good. But then after seeing that, I was like, how come I relate so much with the Taurus? This is crazy, like, and some of the other ones too. And they just made me laugh so hard. So then I looked her up and I realized like, oh, she has like an astrologer school. And I was just
Mm,
like telling my husband, I'm like, I know this costs a lot of money, but I have to do it. I don't,
mm,
and I didn't even really believe in astrology
mm.
at the time.
But you felt
You
it.
ever have those moments where you're like, you have to do the thing, but it doesn't really make sense. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God.
you just do it. And
Most of
then
my
because
life.
you have to, right? You're like being shoved. Um, so that's what I did. I started to just dive really deep into studying astrology, and I went on to study with a bunch of other people that resonated even more. And the more I learned, the more I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been seen like this ever in my whole life. And then
Yeah.
it just goes deeper and deeper till you start to learn the cycles and why you feel a certain way at a certain time of year. Like why do you feel a little heavier during May or August or something, or why do you feel really energetic at this month of the year? And then you can just break it down to every planet has, the outer planets have really long cycles, like 20 years, 12 years, 84 years, like depending on how far they are. And the moon has 28 day cycles. So you're influenced by 28 day cycles all the way out to 248 day cycles or year cycles, excuse me. And they're
248
all,
year cycles.
yeah, like you never even really experience the entire cycle in your life. It's like so
Huh.
vast. And we're all energetic beings being influenced by these other energetic bodies, you
Mm.
know? Even the sun cycle is so important to tune into because it's our seasons and it's our body and it's the way our body takes in light, and it's so beautiful, like the more you tune in with it. And really, you don't have to know astrology to watch the patterns, you know, like take note, have a journal, like, okay, why is it that I feel this kind of way and during this month? Well, that's probably the sun, right?
Mm.
Because every year during this period of time you feel like this. There's a reason why, like, for example, right now we're in Cancer season and a
That's
lot
my
of us are
season.
spending, yes, we're spending time with family because that's
Yeah.
Cancer. It's
Yeah.
like that's why in the summer, well, summer for northern hemisphere people, but even in the southern hemisphere, there's like a reason why we're like, oh, I want to nest my home right now and I want to like cook a little bit more maybe, or be around my family or go on vacation with my family or just rest. Like
Mm.
there's a total reason for it. And you
Mm.
can watch these patterns in yourself, and it's so game changing because it gives you permission to be like, yeah, I'm just going to lean in. Like I'm going to lean into that, you
Well,
know?
how can you, like, how can I learn more about that? Like, is that something, I mean, if people listen to, example, your Instagram page, Farmhouse Moon, if they listen to your videos, because you give really nice videos, like it's just you just talking nice and calm, nothing crazy, and talking about things that are happening, cycles that are happening. Is that, I mean, that's one way. Is there
Yeah.
like, is there a place that you would recommend that people could maybe start doing some research?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I love to give astro updates, like you said, on Instagram, and I put them on YouTube too. And I'm in Instagram. If you ever DM me, and I don't know if anybody, you know, like the little notes in your messages where people can leave little notes and the little stickies.
No.
I put the moon sign every day in there. So if you've ever messaged me on Instagram, you'll see at the top it says like the moon's in Libra. But you can also go to astro.com and just click on the little icon, the moon, sun, Mercury symbol in the top right corner, and look at what sign is the moon in. Again, you don't have to know anything about the sign. You can
Mhm.
just go click on it and say, okay, the moon's in Libra. I'm just going to see how I feel today. And the moon's in a sign for 2.5 days.
Okay.
So if you just do that and then take notes, and then okay, the sun's in Libra, we're Libra season, you know, how do I feel during Libra season? What's the theme? Because there's always a theme.
Mm.
Always.
And they'll
And you
always
can,
repeat, like your themes
and
will
it'll
always
always
repeat.
repeat, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, like every time the moon's in Libra, like the first day, because there's 2.5 days of each sign, right? So
Mhm.
if it's hitting a certain one of your planets, if it's in a certain house, and this is all just, you know, astrological talk, but you don't have to know any of that to realize like I feel this way on when the moon's in Libra, you know?
Because if you
Um,
start to write it down, then you can start historically
exactly.
tracking what it
Exactly.
is that I feel on that, like felt
Yes.
on that day. Obviously, it seems like it make more
Yes.
sense to write like maybe the day after or something.
Yeah. And then, you know, in my program, I give people maps, like I give them moon maps where they can do it themselves and they can look at a little key, and it's very easy and simplified. And I am going to teach a class here pretty
Oh,
soon
good.
because I really, really want to help people, empower them to do it themselves without having to know astrology all the
Yeah.
way.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
you still have to learn the archetypes, right? But
Yeah.
you can have little like keys and maps to figure it out for yourself because it's all custom to you. It's the thing. Everyone is very different with
Mm.
how things affect them. Like a moon in Virgo, for example, we all feel it. We all feel the Virgo archetype, which is, you know, more detailed and productive, and it wants to get things done. And it's time to, you know, look at your to-do list and clean your house and, you know, be responsible. But it, for you, it might be at the bottom of your chart, which is like, okay, I just want to go inward and do this. And
Mm.
for someone else, it might be at the top of their chart. And so
Mhm.
they're going to feel different,
Right.
you know? And so that's like really one way to do it. I also have a newsletter where I talk a lot about, you know, the this is what this full moon means. And I try my hardest not to use too much astrological language
Yeah.
because that
Jargon
really,
gets hard. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just, it's pointless to people. Even to astrologers sometimes. It's like we don't need to talk about all the nerdy aspecting. We just need to talk about what does this feel like and
Yeah. Tell me
what does
what
it
this
mean?
means. What does this mean to me?
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, really like doing a journal with the sun and the moon makes a huge difference. And then, you know, if you do follow an astrologer, if there's a Mercury retrograde or a Venus retrograde, which we have coming up, you can kind of get a flavor of like, okay, that's why I feel like my feelings are really emotional right now, or I feel like everything's breaking in my life, or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, you actually taught me during my birth chart reading that I was born during a Mercury in retrograde, which I never had heard that before. I didn't know. And that was interesting. And then you said that I would need to go inwards and reflect more when Mercury was in retrograde. I was like, ooh, that's nice, because I mean, I'm usually not that affected by things breaking, or like, contracts not coming through or whatever. Yeah, but that made perfect sense to me. See, like, I mean, just hearing all this stuff, I'm like, I feel like I know nothing, and I have been in this, I don't want to say realm, but you know what? I did buy this book. This
Yes.
book that you told us about, the only astrology book you'll ever need. Look at the size of this fat boy. It is so good. I loved going through my birth chart, like, and looking in there and like learning more about myself. I'm also going to I'll reference this in the show notes if anybody ever wants to go buy it, but I think it's an excellent book to
Yeah.
reference. And you were the one that told me about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That book.
So this, like, your world, I mean, you're working now with a lot of really big people. I mean, important people that are doing important work in the world, which I love. And that's why it's also so important that it's given in a way, the information is given in a way that people can take it in.
Yeah.
And I think you are excellent at that, and are a supreme specimen of a person who is able. That is your task. I believe that you've been tasked with that this lifetime,
Thank
um,
you.
because you got the gift. Now, we were talking about, before we hit the record button, about things in our lives that have brought us to, like, the pivotal points of our life, and where you were 15 years old and you had a health a health problem. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 15, I was diagnosed with bone cancer.
Mm.
Um, and it was so fascinating because I like, even looking back at it, I had so much trust. It was really, really scary for sure.
Mhm.
Being 15 years old and kind of facing your life. And I remember
Yeah.
them saying like, yeah, there's only like a 50 to 70% chance of it going away and you living. And I was like, well, okay, shit.
Okay. Of me
um,
living. Okay. All right.
yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So I really had to face my life. And I remember trying to be so strong for the people in my life, that
Mm.
like, so that because it like wrecked my mom,
Yeah,
she
of
was a
course.
mess.
Sure.
So I was like, well, I need to be the strong one here. And I actually had found Christianity like just before then. Grew up Catholic, in and out of random churches. We weren't really like committed or anything, but I found my homie Jesus, and thank goodness that I had like some sort of faith to
Mm.
lean on during that
Yeah.
period of time. Because and
Mm.
I just it's grown, my whole like belief system has grown a lot since then, but very grateful for that,
Mm.
support that I had, just to
Yeah.
give it up to someone else.
Right.
Um, and yeah, it was a really pivotal moment. From 15 to 17, I was in and out of surgery. Luckily, didn't have to have any radiation or chemo because it was such a rare type of cancer. Like, they were so confused why a 15-year-old has it.
Mm.
Um, and actually think now that it was because I detasseled corn in the cornfields when I was 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
And I was literally in pesticide ridden fields
Oh
and
my
I was
gosh.
really hardcore. I was the one that was like trying so hard. And
I'm gonna have the most corn. I'm the queen of
I'm gonna
corn.
do the best. And really, like, it's called detasseling. So you take the tops of the corn plants off so that they don't pollinate. And it's this big Midwestern thing. Like, if you're a kid when you're 13, you can have a job. So I was like, sign me up.
Yeah.
And now in retro, like looking in hindsight, it's like I think that's probably had something to do with it, because I've learned so much
Oh
about
my
my body
gosh.
and my
Yeah.
genetics and all kinds of things since then. And I have a really hard time detoxing.
Mm.
Some people do. It's kind of pretty common. So I
Hmm.
realize now, like, I think that my body couldn't detox a lot of those pesticides. And it was like you know, that was the physical. I'm sure there was an emotional
Yeah.
reason. And during
Yeah.
that period of time, it was a Saturn transit.
Okay.
And, oof, yeah, that Saturn transit was really like Saturn transits are very, very karmic. They're,
Mm,
especially when we're younger, all the way up to age 30, like every 7 years you have one.
mhm,
And whenever you have one, it's like you're really faced with a moment in your life where you have to deal with something kind of heavy or hard, you know?
mm,
So it shaped me completely in my beliefs. It helped me trust that, because that feeling that I had the whole time, I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. I
mm.
have so much shit to do in this life.
Yeah.
I cannot go out, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Right. Now I ain't got time for this. Okay, we gotta
Yeah.
get this out. Get this
Yes,
gone. Uh-huh.
totally. And
Okay.
it just like it brought my family together in ways that they hadn't been together in a long time.
Mm,
And, it was obviously very traumatizing. And I still have dealt
mm.
with, like, that's how it works, right? When you go
Yeah,
through something really intense, it comes up in layers. But
sure.
it also really shaped me. And after learning astrology, I was like, okay,
Mm,
that karmic moment. And for me, Saturn represents relationship karma. And it was
mm,
all about the relationships in my life
mm.
at the time. Not even about, and like my place in them too.
Sure.
So yeah, it was really fascinating.
So as a 15 to 17-year-old, then um, I mean that's can you see that in your birth chart?
Yeah.
Hmm. That was a moment was going to happen, that was going to be a real tough time, but that
Yeah.
you would clear it, that
Yeah.
they would get to the other side, because
Yeah.
that's, again, it's part of the story. This is why I love storytelling. People
Yeah.
sharing their stories, people sharing their journeys, that people that are honest, people that are willing to share in front of others and not have to put on masks or be ashamed. Or, I mean, we have nothing to be ashamed of. We have only ourselves and our lives to be so proud of, that we've
Yeah.
gotten to this point. And um the artist in you also, which I think the artwork that you have on your posts, I think, are beautiful, and in your newsletters, because I get your newsletters too. I get all your stuff. One of your fans. Yeah. But the patterning, like I think it's interesting. We talked a little bit about patterns and tracking patterns. Do you see that? Does every single person just keep recreating like the same things over and over again?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think that until we're really ready to face the thing, our soul's going to keep pushing us towards that stuff, even if that
Mm,
stuff is quote unquote suffering. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Because
mm,
when you're in at least this is my belief, of course, but when you're in a body, before you come here, you have this, like, I'm going to do XYZ and I have this contract and I'm going to work with this person and deal with this and maybe learn this. And there's free will in that. You can do whatever you want within it, but there's still some sort of structure.
mm.
And so you come in and your soul is like, but we have a North Star, remember? Remember, you're trying to do this thing. And so your soul will push you towards that. Like you'll meet a certain person or you'll get fired from a job because that job is not meant for your soul to like hang out in, even though at the time you're so confused as to why this would be happening to you.
Yeah.
So I find that we're always being pushed that way. And for some people that are really conscious, not just even through astrology, just through like their own intuition and their own trust in themselves or their beliefs, it's a little easier because once you kind of learn that lesson, then your soul doesn't have to push you so hard,
Mm,
you know?
mm.
Um, and I also believe that we're learning layers of the lesson throughout our whole life. Like we never just make it to the finish line because that's silly.
I mean,
It's like when
what's
people,
finish line? What is a finish line anyway?
yeah. It's like when people say, like, I need balance in my life. I just want to balance. I'm like, but you're never gonna really be balanced. You're always
Mm-mm.
gonna be on the path towards balance.
Yeah.
But
Well, I
that's
think it's
not like,
also a part of balance, of saying I need balance. There's balance in that. Just saying the
yes,
fact that you
exactly.
recognize that you need balance, you're already
Right.
doing better. You're doing better than you were.
Yes, absolutely.
we need to be
Absolutely.
we need to be gentle with ourselves too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because I'm working on this also for myself right now, to feel it, to sniff out my imbalances, because I feel it in my body. I feel it
Yep.
when I don't feel like, I'm out of kilter, I'm off kilter. I need to fix this myself, and I need to look at it, and I do, and then I fix it, and then I change it. Right? It's like it's the big eyeball in the sky that I like to call for myself. I become a big eyeball to look at myself from this
Mm,
perspective up here, like the helicopter, so that I can
love that.
see what it is that I need to see, because when I'm in it, it's too hard. Um,
Yes.
but the shadows, like shadow work also, because the shadows come up in the birth charts, definitely, which I love. I love doing shadow work. I think it's fascinating. Maybe can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe for somebody who doesn't know what shadow work means.
Yeah, so that's been something I've been really defining for myself too, because so many people talk about shadow work, right? And for a
Mhm.
long time, I was like, "What are they talking about?"
Yeah. And because nobody ever says what it means,
Yes,
people just
everyone
talk
talks
about
about it, but they
it.
don't. Yes, yes, it's so true. So for me, my definition of shadow work is the pieces and parts of us that we've shoved down the basement. Like, you've had an experience and you're like, yeah, you need to go down the basement. You cannot have a seat at the table.
Mhm.
And so when we go into the basement, into our caves, or we have these harder moments, and there's a piece of us that's, I don't feel safe, or there's like a 12-year-old version of you that something happened to you. They're like soul fragments.
Mm.
And when we have triggers or moments of hardship or feeling emotionally, deep, deep things, we have an opportunity to be like, hey, you can come have a seat at the table. You're safe here. I see
Mm.
you. I like to write letters to pieces of me.
Mm.
Like,
That's
hey, I
nice.
see that you never got XYZ and you desperately were looking for that. And you're
Mm.
safe now,
Mm.
And I also think that shadow work is pieces and parts of us from past lifetimes,
Yeah.
like losing a child or dying or being hung. Or a lot of people that are on the spiritual path right now on earth have very traumatic past lives,
Mhm.
because what we were doing is we were trying so hard to speak up for the truth
Mm.
or what we saw or the magic in the world. And it was like, you're done,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So we were
Let's see
really
if you can
persecuted.
float.
Yeah.
Mm.
So these tend to be our biggest wounds, is like where we don't feel like we're enough, or where we don't value ourselves, or,
Mm.
and they're actually our greatest gifts. And so the more shadow work you do, like, come to the table,
Yep.
you're okay. And I
Yes.
see you, and oh, wasn't that so hard? And
Mhm.
we realize, at least for myself, I realize like how much we've been through in so many lifetimes. Then I
Mm.
can be so much more gentle on myself,
Yeah.
because we've experienced some really hard stuff.
Mm.
So it's really honoring these parts of you.
Mm.
It's complex, right? Like shadow
Mm.
work is totally,
Yeah, it is complex, and it's but it's also it's what are you afraid of? You're afraid of the boogeyman. Well, where's the boogeyman? Boogeyman's in the dark, right? It's like there isn't a boogeyman. Turn the lights on. As soon as you turn the lights on, there's no
yeah,
boogeyman. There's nothing
yeah,
more to be afraid of. So shining a light on it, which the feelings or the fears or the shame, so much
so much shame.
embarrassment, so
Yes,
much. I mean, just and that doesn't even have to be from this lifetime. Like that, there could be stuff in us that we are carrying traumatically in our own bodies that we don't even understand because it hasn't even happened in this life. And
exactly.
that's that I think is really hard for most of us to kind of come to terms with, because if we haven't experienced it in this world now, then it's hard to understand that or maybe it's a dream, like a recurring dream that you keep having over
Yes.
and over and over again, and to understand that, do some work around that, bring that up, bring that out, write it down, have a moment with it and look at it, and what could it mean to you, what does it mean to you, how does it make you feel.
Yeah.
That's it's there's many things that we can do when it comes to the feelings that don't feel good, like the not feel good feelings.
Yeah. And the
Talking about them.
fears, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
Like, why
yeah.
are you scared of I had a friend who was scared of, like, plants. She didn't wanna
Mm-hmm.
touch plants. She was like,
Mm-hmm.
"What the hell is wrong with me?" And she did a past life regression and realized she was poisoned by plants
Ooh.
in a past
Oh
life.
gosh, yeah.
Like, we don't even, like you said, you don't even know
Mm,
sometimes why things are
no.
the boogeyman to you.
No, no, like the fear of the dark or fear of
Yeah,
birds. One of my best friends is afraid of birds, like deathly
yeah,
afraid of birds. I mean, she's done a lot of therapy around that, and I mean, she's done a lot of work, which is great. She's come a long way, but it's still there. It's still there,
yeah,
and
yeah, absolutely.
not exactly
And
sure
part
what.
of the shadow work is accepting,
Yeah.
accepting that that's okay, like, telling
Mm.
yourself it's okay.
And I especially like that everyone is welcome at the table, like all pieces and
Mhm.
parts of us, not just the pretty parts, not just the nice parts,
Yeah.
not just the ones that are really nice to the neighbors, but the ones that are really ugly and bad mouthing everybody. They're also
Yes.
welcome, because that's your old that's a little pattern. Also, these are patterns that
Yeah.
come up in us, and that we need to take a look at. Also, like, why do you feel that you need to do that? Why do you feel
Yes.
like you want to be ugly or mean to other people? Let's where is that coming from? It's coming from childhood. Okay, well, let's talk about that moment in childhood when that started, right? It's it's beautiful. It's beautiful work. And this is the power of the what people have access to with your work through
Yeah.
your beautiful gifts that you are able to share with people.
Yeah.
Now here I am. I've taken a lot of your time here. So but I will say one more thing I want to say. When you have that class, you got to let me know. I want to share it out to our people. If you ever
I
have that
will.
class that you were talking
I will.
about, please, please, please. Do you
Yeah.
have anything that you want to share that's on your heart it could be one person listening to this that needs to hear whatever it is you still want to say. Is there anything you want to share?
Yeah. I just want your listeners to know like that all the parts are accepted at the table. Like just the shadow work piece, I think is such an important piece. And we're about to head into a Venus retrograde. And she only does this every 18 months. So she's pretty special. Venus is very
Mm,
special. She's, very much our feelings and our
mm,
desires and our self-worth and our
mm,
values. And right now there's like this beautiful invitation um to kind of reevaluate. What do I love? How do I love? Should I be putting my energy into this? Is it in alignment with what my values are?
mm,
Why don't I love myself? How can I feel more worthy? And I think most humans are kind of on that path of trying to feel more worthy of love.
mm,
And so over the summer, all the way into the beginning of September, we have this beautiful invitation to slow all the way down and reevaluate all of these things. And
mm,
it's really in these slow down cycles that we can do so much work, even though it feels like nothing's happening or
mm,
like we're trudging through mud or quicksand or something. So I just want to invite your people, like similar to what you're doing in
mm,
July, where
mm,
you're taking time to
mm.
chill out and
Yep,
find
reconnect.
yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, reconnect with your center. Like
Mm,
that is that's the cycle is there for us right now. And if we push really hard to do the opposite, it's going to be super frustrating, you know?
mm, mm,
And so the invitation with this retrograde specifically is to like go play, like
mm,
connect with the little you, do something creative just for the sake of creativity, go swim in the lake, like
mm,
just go be fully embodying summer
mm,
energy in that
mm,
leisurely, playful, creative kind of way. And it will feel so much like you're in the flow versus like, hitting a wall.
mm.
So, yeah.
Permission granted. To
And
have
you were
fun.
intuitively feeling it. Like
Yeah,
you already were like, you're so tuned in intuitively, right? Like you don't
yeah,
have to know astrology at all to be like, I'm listening to my body. What's my
yeah.
body saying?
Mhm.
She needs some time off.
I need some time away from a computer for a while.
Yeah.
Yes, and, I haven't gone swimming in so long. Being in water, it's so healing. I'm a Cancer. I'm meant to be in the water.
You
A
are.
crab. I'm supposed to be in the water, and I
Yeah.
love the water. Yeah, so, like, reconnecting and having fun, letting it be easy, and
Yeah.
just laughing, just being easy, like having joy be that close to the surface
Yeah.
instead of being like this, the push, the hustle, that mentality is so against everything I stand for anyway. But
Yeah.
to kind of like that, maybe if that's something that you really are driven by, put that on the side burner right now,
Yeah.
and just allow yourself to have the fun and the pleasure and the joy. And then when you do, then you can come back and it's going to be even better what you're going to be able to
Yeah.
create
Yeah.
in
It's so
your world.
productive.
Yeah.
This is like so productive, guys. Like I
Mm,
always reframe things by saying like play is productive because it
mhm,
really is. It really is. And
mhm,
kind of like what we were talking about earlier is like when you do this, you're able to really refill your tank and
yep.
you get to ask yourself, why?
Mm.
Why do I do what I do? And that's the Venus energy. She's always like, well, is this actually something you value? Because your
Mhm,
values, like they usually stick with you.
yep.
They can like change and grow, but usually you have like really solid values. Like,
Yep.
is your value freedom? Well, are you taking steps to have that?
Do
Right.
you feel free?
Right.
Mhm,
Right. And what
yeah.
can you do to kind of realign yourself with your
Mm,
actual desires and your values? Like, that's what we get to do right
mm.
now. So,
That's the invitation. The
yes.
Venus invitation.
Yes. And you may feel frustrated during it.
Mm.
That's okay too.
That's okay. That's it. That's okay. It's an emotion too. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a right word, that because with frustration comes also emotion, and emotion is right energy in motion. So we need to move things. We need to move ourselves, move our emotions, move our energies around a little bit, because through that comes clarity. I believe.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
believe. I believe. I believe. All right. Thank
Speak in
you.
wisdom.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Did you hear that? Oh, did you just hear that? I'm so
No.
sorry. This telephone just started to ring right in my ear. I almost just had a heart attack. Sorry.
Oh no, it like sounded like a little click to me. It was like really
Oh,
quiet.
no, it popped up. It was huge. I was like, what? So sorry. Oh my goodness. Ooh. All right, Stevie, I apologize for that screaming in your ear from me. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you. Thank you for your beautiful heart. Thank you for being who you are, showing up as the real you in a world that is so desperate for more of that. I know I am. I
Thank you
know
so
I
much
am.
for having me.
Yeah.
And it's always a
Thank you.
pleasure being in your energy, always.
Oh, thank you. And the same, I hopefully now more people that I know get to see you. And that's what this is for. We share one another so that we can, so other people can know who you are and the work that you're doing and who you are as a human, to see it is so possible. It is so possible to live a fantastic life doing things your way. Not
Yeah.
not just because somebody else told you to do it, but because you said, this is what I want, and you're creating it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're modeling it. And that's the thing. We need models. We need people to look at, to see they've done it. I can too.
Thank you.
Mm.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. Until next time, I definitely want to have you back. Hopefully
Yes.
you'd want to be a guest
I
again.
would, oh my gosh, it would be an honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Stevie. Mwah. Take good care of you now.
You too.
Thank you.